My sister didn't just steal my boyfriend in high school. She built her entire perfect, porcelain life on the carefully cultivated ruins of my own. And a decade later, she was poised to pull off her greatest heist yet. The systematic destruction of my future and the dream I'd bled for. My name is Clara, I'm 26 years old, and the shadow I've lived in my whole life has a name. Olivia, my 28-year-old sister. Our parents, Helen and Robert, 55 and 57, didn't just play favorites. They built a shrine to Olivia and used me as the foundation. Every achievement of mine was a nice effort, while Olivia's most minor accomplishment was met with a standing ovation. I learned to patch my fragile self-esteem with the grit of independence. Earning a degree through student loans and waitressing, building a career in graphic design one freelance gig at a time, and finding solace in the love of my fiancé, Mark, a kind-hearted architect who saw the real me hiding beneath the layers of familial neglect. The final, shattering blow came 3 months ago, but its roots were planted a lifetime ago. Mark and I had nurtured a shared dream for 5 years. To open our own independent bookstore, a sanctuary for forgotten classics and new voices. We called it The Next Chapter. We'd scrimped, saved, and sacrificed every luxury, our savings account a testament to our dedication. When we found the perfect location, a slightly dilapidated but charming space with original hardwood floors and large, dusty windows in an up-and-coming neighborhood, it felt like fate. We signed a punishing 5-year lease, secured a terrifyingly large small business loan, and poured our hearts and every last penny into the renovation. We spent weekends sanding floors, painting walls a warm, buttery yellow, and building bookshelves from reclaimed wood. The smell of sawdust and hope was intoxicating. A week after the construction began, Olivia and her husband, David, the very same high school sweetheart she'd comforted after our messy breakup, hosted a family dinner at their impeccably decorated McMansion. Over a dessert of artisan cheesecake, Olivia, with a theatrical sigh, announced her latest passion project. She was opening a concept lifestyle boutique named Elysian. My blood ran cold as she described it. A curated space for the discerning individual, featuring limited edition home goods, designer stationery, and a small, aesthetically perfect selection of artisanal coffee table books. Then she dropped the location. It wasn't just in the same city, it was the adjacent unit in our very same building, the one that had been vacant, and which we had been told was slated to become a yoga studio. The air left my lungs. I looked at Mark, his face a mask of stunned disbelief. Olivia. I managed, my voice trembling. You can't be serious. We're opening a bookstore there. This is a direct conflict. You'll siphon away any chance we have before we even open our doors. She gave me her signature, pitying smile, the one that had preceded every childhood betrayal. Competition is healthy, Clara. It keeps businesses on their toes. And let's be honest, she gestured around her lavish dining room. My boutique will attract a much higher-end clientele. It might actually bring some worthwhile foot traffic to your little. What is it again? A used bookshop. My parents beamed at her as if she'd just solved world hunger. What a brilliant, visionary entrepreneur our Olivia is. My mother gushed, clasping her hands together. So brave, taking on such a sophisticated venture in that emerging area. My father nodded, his chest puffing with pride. She has a real head for business, a killer instinct. It's a cutthroat world out there. Unlike some people who just follow sentimental little dreams. His eyes flickered towards me, and the dismissal in them was a physical slap. Mark squeezed my hand under the table, a silent anchor in the storm of their collective approval for this blatant sabotage. I swallowed the hot, bitter tears of rage and betrayal, feeling them solidify into a cold, heavy stone in the pit of my stomach. The following months were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Our construction was plagued by delays and budget overruns. Olivia's, bankrolled by David's family money, proceeded with the ruthless efficiency of a military operation. She hired a celebrity interior designer. We stained the bookshelves ourselves, our clothes permanently smudged with varnish. She secured exclusive, high markup deals with European brands. We negotiated with local authors and scoured estate sales for unique editions. The stress was a constant, humming presence in our lives. Mark and I, once a united front, began to fray at the edges. We snapped at each other over misplaced tools, argued over finances, and went to bed with our backs turned. The unspoken fear of failure a chasm between us. The grand openings were scheduled for the same weekend, a collision of two worlds. Hers was on a Friday evening, a black tie optional affair with a champagne fountain, canapes, and a minor social media influencer hired to cut the ribbon. Ours was a humble Saturday morning affair with a coffee urn, a platter of cookies I'd baked, and a hopeful open sign. I sent a final pleading text to my family group chat, a last desperate bid for their support. The night of Olivia's opening, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Honey, we're so sorry," she began, her voice dripping with false regret. "But we simply have to be at Olivia's event. It's a crucial networking opportunity for your father. Several of his firm's biggest clients will be there. You understand how these things are, don't you? We'll try our very best to stop by your little thing tomorrow." They didn't just attend. They were the stars of the show. My social media feed became a real-time torture reel. There they were, my mother in a sequin gown and my father in a tux, posing as the proud parents in front of Elysian's gleaming facade, their arms wrapped around their golden child. Meanwhile, a photo of our The Next Chapter's storefront, looking cozy but undeniably small, was posted by a friend with the caption, "Stopped by this adorable new spot." The contrast was brutal. The next morning, as Mark and I arranged the final display of new releases, my eyes kept darting to the door. A foolish, stubborn part of my heart still clinging to the hope that my parents would walk in, that they would see what we had built and finally be proud. The door remained closed. But then, around noon, it creaked open, and a figure slowly entered, leaning heavily on a polished wooden cane. It was my grandfather, Earl. He was 75 and had been battling a severe bout of pneumonia for the past month. He lived a full hour's drive away. I rushed to his side, my heart lurching with a mixture of joy and concern. "Grandpa, you shouldn't have come. The doctor said you need complete rest," I scolded, taking his arm to guide him to a chair. He waved me off with a grunt, his face pale but his eyes bright and clear. "And miss my favorite granddaughter's big day? Not a chance in hell." He looked around, his gaze sweeping over the warm lighting, the towering shelves, the comfortable reading nooks. A slow, genuine smile spread across his weathered face. "You kids did good, Clara. Really good. This has soul." Tears, which I had stubbornly held back for months, finally spilled over. His simple, heartfelt approval was a lifeline. He stayed for 3 hours, charming our few customers, buying a stack of historical novels, and simply sitting in a worn armchair, his presence a quiet, solid comfort. When the initial trickle of visitors subsided, he gestured for me to join him. "I saw the three-ring circus next door last night," he said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. "On that infernal Facebook. Saw your parents front and center, grinning like fools." He didn't need to elaborate. The profound disappointment in his eyes spoke volumes. "I've watched this damn pattern my whole life, since you were a little girl in pigtails. Olivia gets the spotlight, the microphone, the goddamn marching band. And you get the shadows. I'm sorry, Clara. I'm sorry I didn't speak up more when you were younger. I thought it wasn't my place." "It's not your fault, Grandpa," I whispered, my throat tight. "You were always my safe harbor." "I may be old and sick, but I'm not blind or stupid," he continued, his jaw set. "And I know exactly what they're after. They think because I've been ill, my time is short. Your father has been helpfully forwarding me emails from estate lawyers for months. Olivia calls weekly, her voice dripping with concern, steering every conversation toward legacy planning and financial security for the family. Your mother drops not-so-subtle hints about their staggering property taxes and the astronomical cost of replacing their roof. He shook his head, a gesture of pure disgust. They're not my family, they're vultures. Circling, waiting for me to die. I was horrified, a cold dread seeping into my bones. Grandpa, that's monstrous. He reached out and patted my hand, his own gnarled and spotted with age. Don't you worry about me. I've made my decision. My will is updated, signed, and notarized. They've made their choices and I've made mine. You've never asked me for a single thing, Clara. Not a dime. You're the only one who visits me and talks to me, not at my bank account. He didn't spell it out, but the implication was a lead weight in the room. I felt a wave of nausea. I didn't want his money. I craved his love and respect, which he had never withheld. The first month of business was a brutal reality check. While Elysian was the talk of the town, featured in local magazines and frequented by the city's glitterati, the next chapter was a quiet secret. Our sales were a fraction of our projections. The weight of the loan, the rent, the utilities, it was a constant, suffocating pressure. The dream was starting to feel like a noose. One evening, after a day where we'd only sold 2 books and a cup of coffee, the dam finally broke. Mark and I had a blistering argument. Maybe we should just admit it was a mistake, he shouted, his face flushed with frustration and fear. We're pouring everything into a sinking ship. Your pride is going to bankrupt us. My pride? I shot back, tears of rage streaming down my face. This is our dream, Mark. Or did you stop believing in it the second my sister showed up next door? We went to bed in a thick, hostile silence, the space between us and our small apartment feeling like a mile-wide chasm. The next day my phone rang. It was my mother. Her tone was unnervingly soft, conciliatory in a way that set my teeth on edge. Honey, your father and I were talking last night. We feel just terrible about missing your opening. It was a scheduling nightmare. We'd like to make it up to you. We want to help. We're going to invest $50,000 into the bookstore. The number hung in the air, surreal and colossal. It was a life-saving amount. It would cover our operating costs, our loan payments, our salaries for nearly a year. It was the difference between failure and survival. For a fleeting, desperate second, I almost said yes. Mom. Why? I stammered, my mind reeling. Why now? It's what family does, she said, her voice oozing a practiced, maternal warmth that felt utterly alien. We support each other. We want to see you succeed. We believe in you. It felt wrong. It felt like a trap. The timing was too perfect, the amount too generous, the tone too saccharine. Later that afternoon, as if on cue, Olivia called. I hear Mom and Dad are finally bailing you out, she purred, her voice like poisoned honey. How charitable of them. I suppose even a failing business deserves a pity party handout. Just don't come crying to me when it all goes under anyway. Some people just aren't cut out for this. And just like that, the pieces clicked into place with a sickening, final clarity. I immediately called Grandpa Earl. Grandpa, I said, my voice shaking. They suddenly want to give me $50,000. Out of the blue. Grandpa Earl was silent for a long moment, and I could almost hear his furious, disappointed thoughts. I had my lawyer send them a formal copy of the updated will yesterday, he admitted, his voice grim. I thought it would be a wake-up call, finally make them back off and reflect on their behavior. It seems I've underestimated their gall. They're not investing in your business, my dear. They're investing in your goodwill. They think if they buy your affection now, you'll be morally obligated to share your eventual inheritance with them later. They're trying to ensure their future payout. The revelation was a sucker punch to the gut. Their generosity was nothing but a calculated, long-con bribe. The money was filthy, tainted with their greed and manipulation. I felt violated. That night, I sat down with Mark. I told him everything: the will, the vulture-like behavior, my grandfather's theory. The anger and disgust on his face mirrored the storm inside me. "We can't take it, Clara," he said, his voice firm and resolute. "We can't. We'll figure something else out. I'll take on more freelance projects. You can ramp up your design work. We'll rent out the back room for events. We'll do anything. But we will not take their blood money." A strange sense of peace settled over me. He was right. The next morning, I called my parents back. My hand was steady, my voice clear. "Thank you for the offer," I said, cutting off my mother's cheerful greeting. "It's very generous. But Mark and I have discussed it, and we've decided we don't want your money." The silence on the other end was deafening, then exploded into chaos. My father snatched the phone. "After everything we're trying to do for you," he roared. "This is unbelievable ingratitude. You're going to fail. You're going to lose everything without us." "Maybe we will," I replied, my voice eerily calm. "But we'll fail on our own terms. We know why you're really doing this. Grandpa Earl told me. We want no part of your games." My mother came back on the line, sobbing now, but the tears had lost their power over me. "You're throwing our help back in our faces. You're determined to hate your sister and tear this family apart. You've always been so difficult, so jealous." I didn't have the energy to fight anymore. I simply said, "Goodbye, Mom," and ended the call. I then went through my phone, methodically blocking their numbers, and then Olivia's. A profound, almost spiritual sense of relief washed over me. It was finally, truly over. The backlash was immediate and vicious. They called from blocked numbers, their voices alternating between venomous threats and weeping pleas. They sent long, manipulative emails. They showed up at the bookstore demanding to be let in, to talk like a family. We stood our ground, our faces set like stone. "You need to leave, or we will call the police," Mark stated, his voice leaving no room for argument. They spread a smear campaign through the extended family, painting me as mentally unstable, claiming I had brainwashed a sick, old man against his own children. Thankfully, many aunts and uncles had witnessed the lifelong favoritism and saw through the lies. Mark and I entered a state of siege, but it was a siege we controlled. We took on every freelance job we could find, working late into the night after closing the shop. I designed logos and websites. Mark drafted residential plans. We launched a blind date with a book service and a monthly subscription box for curated reads, which slowly began to build a loyal, paying following online. It was exhausting, grueling work, but every sale that came through our website, every positive review from a satisfied customer, felt like a victory we had earned with our own clean hands. We were captains of our own sinking ship, and we were slowly, painstakingly, plugging the leaks. 6 months later, we weren't out of the woods, but we could see the edge of the forest. The bookstore was breaking even. It had become a beloved, quiet haven for a dedicated community of readers who valued the personal touch we offered. Olivia's Elysian, however, was floundering. The initial buzz had faded, the high-end clientele was fickle, and her overhead was astronomical. The pressure to maintain her facade of effortless success was cracking her perfect veneer. We heard through the grapevine that her marriage to David was strained, filled with arguments about money. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, the shop was quiet. Grandpa Earl was nestled in his favorite armchair by the fiction section, a mystery novel open in his lap. He looked healthier, his color back, his frame a little less frail. He closed his book with a definitive snap and looked at me, a mischievous glint in his eye. "I'm selling the big house," he announced. "The stairs are a menace, and the garden is too much work. The place is full of ghosts anyway. I've found a bright, modern apartment downtown. 2 bedrooms. Closer to you. That's wonderful news, Grandpa, I said, rushing over to hug him. I was genuinely thrilled. He'd been too isolated in that old, empty house. And, he continued, the glint in his eye turning into a full-blown sparkle, I've decided that if I'm simplifying my life, I might as well simplify my finances and do some living while I'm still alive. I'm not waiting for the grave to distribute my assets. I've established a charitable trust. Mark, who was restocking the travel section, paused to listen. A large portion of the trust is designated as a business grant fund. Grandpa Earl explained, a slow smile spreading across his face. Its purpose is to provide interest-free loans to small, independent local businesses that demonstrate passion, integrity, and a commitment to their community. The board, which consists of me, my lawyer, and a very trusted old friend, has just approved its first major disbursement. He pulled a sealed envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was a formal letter from the Earl Foundation. It stated that the Next Chapter bookstore had been selected as the inaugural recipient of a significant, interest-free business development loan. The amount listed was more than enough to pay off our remaining high-interest debt, invest in a proper marketing campaign, and even expand into the small, vacant storage room at the back, allowing us to host proper author events and book clubs. Mark let out a whoop of joy that echoed through the quiet shop. I threw my arms around my grandfather, laughing and crying at the same time. Thank you. I whispered into his shoulder, my heart overflowing. This wasn't a handout. It was a vote of confidence. It was a belief in our dream, our hard work, our integrity. It was clean, it was pure, and it was earned. The loan was the rocket fuel our dream needed. We paid off our debts, revamped our website, and launched a successful local advertising campaign. Within a year, the Next Chapter was not just surviving, it was thriving, a bustling, profitable, and vibrant community hub. The expansion allowed us to host well-attended events, and we became a known destination in the city. The space next door, the once gleaming Elysian, stood dark and empty, a for-lease sign gathering dust in the window, a silent testament to the hollow nature of stolen dreams and superficiality. My parents and Olivia, having irrevocably burned their bridges with Grandpa Earl and now with me, faded from our lives. The constant drama and emotional whiplash were replaced by a deep, contented peace. The final chapter of that toxic part of my life had been written, not with a dramatic bang, but with the quiet, satisfying turn of a page. And Mark, Grandpa Earl, and I, our little chosen family, were happily starting a brand new, better volume together.